Grettir, a brave young man, hears of a cursed treasure hidden deep in the land. Many have tried to find it, but none have returned. Determined to prove his strength, Grettir sets out on a dangerous journey. Along the way, he faces ghosts, monsters, and deadly traps. Will he survive, or will the curse destroy him? Watch to find out. Welcome to Premier Tales. In a small village surrounded by tall mountains, there lived a strong boy named Grettir. Grettir was known far and wide for his strength. He could lift heavy stones, wrestle with the biggest men, and defeat wild beasts. But Grettir wasn't happy. He wanted more than just strength. He wanted to be remembered forever as a hero. One evening, an old man came to the village and whispered about a hidden treasure deep in the Shadow Fjords. But the treasure was guarded by a terrible curse. "Only the bravest can find it," the old man said. Grettir's eyes sparkled. He wanted that treasure, no matter the cost. The next morning, Grettir packed his things, grabbed his sword, and set off towards the Shadow Fjords. The wind howled and the path grew steeper. The villagers warned him, saying the fjords were full of danger. But Grettir didn't listen. As he walked deeper into the wild, he began to hear strange sounds, whispers in the wind and shadows that seemed to follow him. He felt a chill run down his spine, but kept going. The treasure was within his reach, and nothing could stop him. After days of traveling, Grettir arrived at the edge of the Shadow Fjords. A fog covered the land, making it hard to see. As he moved forward, a shadowy figure stepped out of the mist. It was a tall, pale warrior with glowing red eyes. "You must face your greatest fear before you can pass," the warrior said, pointing to a deep, dark cave. Grettir didn't hesitate. He stepped into the cave, but the darkness swallowed him whole. He felt as though he was falling into his own deepest fear. Suddenly, the ground disappeared beneath his feet, and Grettir was faced with a vision of his village burning and the people blaming him. Panic set in, but Grettir, gathering his courage, closed his eyes and roared. The vision shattered like glass. The warrior disappeared, leaving behind a glowing stone. With the warrior's challenge behind him, Grettir continued his journey, but as night fell, he was surrounded by ghostly wolves. Their eyes glowed, and their growls echoed through the mist. Grettir drew his sword, ready to fight, but the wolves didn't attack. They circled around him, whispering strange words. "The treasure is cursed," they growled. "Greed will destroy you." Grettir ignored them and lunged at the nearest wolf. To his shock, the wolf vanished into thin air. Realizing they were not real, Grettir stepped carefully, using his wits instead of his strength. He kept walking, the wolves vanishing as quickly as they appeared. Finally, Grettir reached the treasure cave deep inside the Shadow Fjords. Gold and jewels sparkled in the dim light, but at the center of it all lay a strange, dark ring. As he picked up the ring, a cold voice echoed in his head. "The curse is yours now." Grettir felt a wave of coldness rush over him. The ring seemed to hum with dark power, but Grettir pushed the feeling aside. He had won the treasure, and soon everyone would know his name. With the ring in his hand, Grettir made his way back to the village. As he walked, he noticed something was wrong. The air felt heavier, and the trees seemed to whisper warnings. He tried to shake off the feeling, telling himself it was nothing. When he returned, the villagers celebrated his victory, but Grettir's mind kept drifting to the dark ring in his pocket. That night, strange dreams filled his sleep, voices, shadows, and an unbearable weight pressing down on him. The next day, strange things began to happen in the village. Crops began to wither, animals disappeared, and the sky turned dark. People whispered that the treasure Grettir had brought home was cursed, but Grettir didn't believe them. He ignored their worried looks and kept the ring close, thinking it brought him power. But as the days passed, more bad things happened. The village elder came to him and said, "The curse will destroy us all if you do not return the treasure." But Grettir refused. He thought he could control it. One night, Grettir woke to find his best friend Olaf sneaking into his home trying to steal the ring. "Give it to me," Olaf cried. "We need to get rid of it." Grettir was shocked, but before he could stop him, Olaf fled into the night with the ring. Grettir chased after him, but when he found Olaf, the ring was gone. In its place was a strange glowing trail leading into the dark forest. The curse was growing stronger. The next day the ghostly wolves returned, but this time they weren't just warning him. They attacked, their teeth snapping at his heels. Grettir tried to fight them off, but no matter how hard he swung his sword, they dissolved into mist. A voice echoed from the shadows, "The ring is your doom. Return it or lose everything." Grettir knew he had to make a choice, but the treasure was so close. He didn't want to lose his chance to be a hero. As Grettir walked back to the village, the sky grew darker than ever before. Storm clouds gathered, and the wind howled like a beast. Grettir could feel the weight of the curse pressing down on him, but still, he refused to let go of the ring. That night, the sky split with thunder, and a massive storm flooded the village. Houses were destroyed, crops washed away, and the villagers screamed in fear. Grettir realized the curse was real, and it had already begun to claim the village. While wandering through the ruins of his village, Grettir heard a voice. It was the same cold voice that had spoken in his mind when he found the ring. "You have unleashed me," it whispered. "I am the spirit of the dragon that guarded the treasure. Now you will pay the price." Grettir, trembling, realized that the treasure was no ordinary wealth. It was a powerful curse that had bound him to the dragon's spirit. The voice in his head told him that he had only one choice: return the ring or face the complete destruction of everything he loved. Grettir made his way back to the fjords, but the journey was long and filled with danger. The wolves followed him, growling, "Return what is not yours." He knew that no matter how strong he was, he couldn't outrun his fate. As Grettir reached the cave where the treasure lay, the shadows grew thicker. The dragon's spirit appeared once again, its glowing eyes burning into his soul. "You are too weak to break the curse," the dragon hissed. But Grettir stepped forward, holding the ring high. "I am not afraid anymore," he said. With one powerful swing of his sword, he threw the ring back into the treasure hoard, where it glowed brightly before shattering into dust. The moment the ring broke, the darkness lifted. The storm clouds disappeared, and the sun shone once more. Grettir felt lighter, as though a heavy weight had been removed from his heart. The curse was broken, but the villagers were still wary of him. They had seen the power of the treasure, and they knew the price of greed. When Grettir returned to the village, he was no longer seen as the hero who had brought treasure. Instead, he was the man who had learned that glory and wealth weren't worth the cost. The villagers began to trust him again, and slowly, life returned to normal. Grettir had finally learned the most important lesson of all. True strength comes from within. As Grettir sat on a hill overlooking the village, he heard the wind whispering through the trees. It seemed to be telling him that his story wasn't over. Grettir realized that there were many more adventures ahead, but this time he would face them with wisdom, not greed. Years passed, and Grettir grew older. He became a wise leader in the village, teaching others the lessons he had learned. No longer driven by the need for glory, he focused on helping those around him. His strength was now used for kindness, and his wisdom guided the village through difficult times. One day, a group of travelers came to the village looking for the lost treasure of the Shadow Fjords. Grettir warned them about the curse, but they didn't listen. As they journeyed to the fjords, Grettir watched from afar, wondering if they would learn the same lesson he had. Years later, the villagers still told the story of Grettir the Strong, not for his battles, but for the way he had overcome his own desires. His story was a reminder that true strength is found in courage, wisdom, and the ability to face one's own weaknesses. In his final years, Grettir sat quietly by the fire, telling his children and grandchildren about his adventures. He smiled as he spoke, knowing that his greatest victory wasn't the treasure he had once sought, but the peace he had found within himself. And in that peace, Grettir the Strong had finally become a legend.